Thanks for coming to the meeting. The procedures that are in front of us, fire drill. There's certain there is no alarm apparently. If you hear the fire or want to get through the fire, there's that door there. I think there's one here. If you smash it down, or you go through the window. But if you've got a wheelchair or disabled and need our help, then the window's not the best place to go. So, please make sure all mobile phones off. I don't turn mine off because of various reasons. Chair to advise the meeting, all part of the meeting will be recorded. Are we on?
Yes.
Right, so you are having your photos taken. The rest of the world can see you. Receive apologies from absence.
Councillor DeFern, Chair.
Yeah.
It's the only one I've received.
So accept that as very good.
And Lynn Price as well.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry.
And Lynn Price.
Yeah, okay, yes, thank you.
June time this
In June. In June. Okay. Declaration of the minutes on the 25th of January, page 6. I've got them here, haven't I? Agree that they've what we did.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I should put payroll in there for the Principal Demographic Services Officer next time, just to see if it's checked.
I'm going to give you money away. Don't give you money away. So that's the declaration of interest. There's quite a few declarations in front of you. Any declaration of interest? Not sure they're printed or anything. Anybody got any to tell us? No. You can tell them when you know, as the meeting goes on or it comes to the item meeting. So that's agreement interest. Just a couple of extra. I should hope most of you have read all that instead of me reading a couple out to you. We're a member of DMAS, Interest Code of Conduct. Yeah. So there is, I understand that part of the council code has been one or two alterations on this, so for all those who are concerned, please hope you make yourself available and really up to speed on them.
We haven't got any public consultation.
No, we've got no public consultation, so we will go straight on to the item 6, and that is pet policy.
Thank you, Chair. The report that you've had sight of is presented to seek approval for the Council to implement the new pet policy. The Landlord Services team are experiencing difficulties at the moment in managing tenants' expectations in respect of keeping the pet at their property. We've got issues with dog fouling and nuisance from pets, and that's prevalent throughout our stock, and it's subsequently having a negative impact on our neighbourhoods. The current position is one of unspoken tolerance at present. There's no clear information or guidance on the conditions of keeping a pet. Historically, there's been no consistency with regards to tenants having the request permission to keep a pet, despite this being a condition of the tenancy agreement. Under the new council's tenancy agreement, tenants and anyone living with the tenant must not keep any animal in or near the property unless they've got written permission. Regrettably, permission has been granted to tenants living in communal blocks when it shouldn't have been. That's happened in the past. And therefore, this policy, we believe, will aim to deal with that situation and will provide further details about keeping pets for new and existing tenants. There's clauses that we've stipulated in the report that are part of the tenancy agreement at the moment. The main changes proposed by this policy will ensure that a consistent approach is applied and taken in respect of tenants applying for permission to keep a pet. All new tenants will have to apply for permission to keep a pet, and existing tenants will have to apply for permission for any additional pets to the household following the policy implementation date. we'll have a internal monitoring process that we'll keep updated on a regular basis, and our staff have already started to keep pet policy, do pet audits. So we've already started to gather the information on what pets we've got in our blocks. So in view of that, we'd like to ask members that the policy is approved so that it can be implemented and operational forthwith. And Sarah and I will answer any questions that you have in connection with that.
Thank you. Oh, I want to comment before you get your chap. I've been on this council, and I ain't one of these old boys who say, oh, I've done 30 years, and I've been on this council 35 years. I've been on housing. When we first started, when we allocated houses, where we all sit there and give houses out, I've gone through all the housing and all the, right the way through up to this committee in that, I covered most. And I have been in charge of housing, yes, so I could partly to blame as well. The day we have done anything about people owning pets in that time, is just this to me is out of it. If this is in my view, anti-pets for our tenants. The rules and regulations, yeah, you're going to have rules, you're going to have regs, but you can't, and you've not implemented what we have. Because I can tell you in my ward, in the flats, there are so many dogs, Rottweilers and all sorts. I've had the police and everybody out to tell them, and when you report them, you do nothing. It's all right having a policy if we carry it out. If we do it and we do it.
Yeah.
And this is my view, you've just given a report. And all them years, I've never seen this authority. Others may prove me wrong, and I'm criticising because we really have done nothing where this is concerned. If you go down on Mount Pleasant now and go into the flats and have a look around, the amount of rules in all the flats, and I've got a lot of flats in our ward, is quite considerable. The amount of people who've got animals in there is just, well, we've just done nothing. And now out of the Borough, to me, we bring the draconian rules why you can't. I agree with that permission, I really should have rules that they clean it up and they shouldn't make noise and they should whatever. Flats are a different kettle of fish because it affects so many people. It really does. And we do need something in the place, but that's just my, sorry, Chair, making comments, but this just, when I've seen it, I thought, well, if we ain't shooting ourselves in the foot, this is just about it after all these years of doing nothing. I suppose you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I suppose you've got to start somewhere. It's still, I'm on retiring, you've decided to do something about the dogs. Please.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think that's what the policy just tried to point out, that because it's not been managed historically, we've got to have a way of dealing with the issues that are there now, which is why we'd be granted, as long as a dog or a cat or something isn't causing a nuisance or antisocial behaviour, then we can grant retrospective permission. But once that pet passes, you know, if you're living in a flat, then you would not be granted permission again because it's a breach of your tenancy. So this policy will not deal with the issues that we've got overnight. It's going to take us some time to get to a point where we can manage it.
Do you know, you read it, and I'm being a little bit, one more stupid to do. You've got dogs, cats and all the other done, all restricted to do it. I can bring a lion, I can bring a tiger, I can bring a crocodile, all into my place, because it, you know.
It does. There is a specific clause within the
Deputy
policy.
Chair,
Sorry. My concern is going to be for the older tenants and companionship, because a lot of the older tenants are going to be living in sheltered accommodation as well, or in flats or maisonettes, and possibly they're going to be living on their own. Now, I completely get where you're coming from with the big dogs, and I think there are some status animals that are probably not the sort of animals you would want to keep in a maisonette or a flat or an environment where you've got lots of people living in under the same roof. But what about old Joe on the corner that lives in sheltered accommodation with his little Jack Russell, and when his little Jack Russell goes and he's on his own,
I think
what about people like him?
from the short time that I've been in at Nuneaton and Bedworth, we don't actually have an issue with pets in the independent living schemes. I think we don't have them because it's always been a blanket policy that
That's
you're not
just an example. I mean, generally for companion pets for older people, not necessarily in the shelter, you know, not that specifically, but just loneliness. I think we might be encouraging loneliness with this policy. I think just this particular thing, I'm not sure whether a case-by-case basis would be a better approach rather than a blanket ban.
The issue with that is that we need to make sure that we're treating everybody fairly and consistently, and we can't give permission to one person and then refuse it for another person. So I think with the policy, just make sure that it's transparent and consistent throughout. I mean, when it was first, we put the policy out to consultation, and we had the original report said that there'd be a blanket no one even visiting animals.
Right.
So, but actually our independent living staff said, oh, hang on a minute, we do get a lot of visitors, not dog visitors, but people visiting with their dogs to come and see aunties or whatever else. And they felt that that would have a big detrimental effect on their lives. So we've removed that following the consultation. But again, what we put in place for general purpose, we need to be consistent in our independent living schemes as well.
But I think we could be encouraging loneliness.
But we could
companion pets.
We could maybe work with resident involvement to try and combat that if that was an issue.
I think
because we've got our wellbeing officers that are out and about, so we could monitor that as well over time. But I think it's really important to be consistent throughout all of our
I understand that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do something about it, because nuisance animals are a real problem, and I do understand that. But I just want to make sure that we're not kind of kicking everybody for the sake of a few people that probably could be managed in a separate way. If they've got a nuisance animal, it tends to be that there are other nuisance factors that go along with that as well, because people that put up with nuisance animals tend to... I wouldn't put up with a nuisance animal because it would drive me nuts if I had a barking dog all day. And I think maybe it's something that should be looked at a little bit more, because I wouldn't want to be encouraging the loneliness aspect of it.
Okay. Chris?
Well, I think it's an excellent piece of work. About time we caught up with the 21st century. I'll let an house, and if anybody wants to take a dog in there, they have to ask me, because I've been in after people have had pets, chewed the skirting board, wrecked the gardens and everything else. It's cost me thousands more than I needed to spend on it because of a dog running out of control. I also know the problems we have in the flats are in my area because of uncontrolled dogs that are left there all day when the person's out at work. Got no gardens to go into. You've covered every single point in here, and I also know lots of other landlords that won't allow pets in their properties. So it's brilliant to see that you've done this excellent piece of work, and would be stupid not to back it up, in my opinion.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Couple of things. Yes, there's actually it's here that says all new tenants will have to apply. So we have got our implementation date. Is it tomorrow, the week after?
It'd be forthwith. So,
Forthwith.
yeah, so we can say
So-
from Monday.
Yeah, so forthwith. So all new tenants. So the tenants that have got pets at the present moment don't have to worry. It's just the new ones.
They will give retrospective permission to those tenants that have already
Already
got
got
a
them.
pet.
Right.
But we will make it clear that once that pet passes, that permission will not be granted for a new pet. So we're not saying to people, right, we know that you've got a dog without permission, you need to get rid of that dog now. That's not what we're doing. We'll give permission for that dog, but when that dog passes, no further permission will be given.
Yeah. There is an argument, of course, Chair, about companion pets, etc., etc. It seems to be a rather favourable thing at the present moment. So, if we're going to implement these policies from when 5 o'clock tonight, have we got the machinery, or have we got policies in place where we're going to deal with dogs wandering the street? Have we got policies of trying to solve this problem? Because everybody's got dogs, and, well, not particularly cats, but dogs running feral all over the place, and nothing seems to be done about them. And the number of complaints we have about children's playgrounds and the dogs messing on them and various other things goes to, you know, have we got the policies in order to deal with that?
Yeah, we've got dog control notices.
Notices about the dogs, but the dogs can't read. And they're feral dogs, or they're dogs that just let out and then they come back whenever they want to do. Have we got policies of picking them up?
Yeah.
Yes, and it's still...
We think we were got dog wardens, don't we?
That's for everyone though, isn't it? Not
Yeah,
just council.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah.
So we've got one dog warden for everywhere then. But this only applies to council parents. Okay, no problem.
I'm sure we would have more if we got the money. We used to have more. We used to have a control point excellent because we used to take up telecom and there was a big farm up there where we used to have a dog area where the dogs used to be taken, whatever. It puzzled me with the flats, which is good. You've got to do some. You say you're going to give them a permission, the ones that already got there. And I know there's 3 families up there, very strong-natured young men who've got what up there. And if we could get off complaining about it, and if we could have had them removed out there, we want to, but I imagine what we're going to do is go in there because you've got dogs in there, and you've got to prove that they are doing what they're doing. You're going to give them permission, and these things are quite heavy animals. Frightens me to death to see with a couple of the bulldogs.
I mean, regardless of this policy, we can deal with that issue now. So if we believe that they've got an excessive amount of animals in their property, and we can evidence that those animals are causing a nuisance, then we can take action in line with the tenancy agreement. So we can serve a notice. We'd have to investigate it, obviously. But that's why the housing officers are going to be out there doing the pet audits anyway. So all this will come to light. It could be that we serve a notice in line with the tenancy agreement,
or
we can apply for injunction.
Because a lot of people out there, knowing some of the people that live there, are frightened to open the mouth.
The thing is, what we
And
need
that's
is
the
that if we are to go to court, we need the council's approach in how we tackle this. And at the minute, they've never really had that, apart from it being a breach of tenancy not to ask permission. So this policy will really support us to be able, if we do need to serve notice for a dog and go to court, then we've got that backing.
Councillor.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
have a crack.
Yeah, I agree with what Claire said earlier. I think particularly for older people, animals are companions, and I'm not sure we should be lumping sheltered housing with flats where you've got younger people with dangerous and barking dogs, which I would guess is the big problem. And I've also I'm concerned about house cats not being allowed as well, because 5.5 it lumps cats and dogs together, and then further down it mentions house cats right at the bottom, house cats that never leave the internal property. So why, if they don't leave, it sort of contradicts itself. At the top it's saying they have to have their own front door and whatnot, and then at the bottom it talks about house cats. So
See, that's the main point I think we need to focus on, is that this policy will run in conjunction with the tenancy agreement. And the tenancy agreement specifically states that we will not give permission for any pets if anybody hasn't got their own front door access. So anybody in a communal area, whether it be an independent living or a block of flats, we can't give permission. We can't give permission for a pet to stay in that type of property because of the communal aspect. So if we can't give people permission because we're effectively letting them breach their tenancy agreement straight away. It's a legal contract that we've got with them.
But I don't see why someone can't have a house cat, particularly an elderly person in sheltered housing.
Because they stink.
You say you're not going
My cats don't smell.
to, you say you're not going to give permission for people in the community flats because they are blocked off.
Yeah.
And there's an area walk out. Now, I've got a dog. You give me permission. Now I want permission. He's got a dog. Why do I got one?
And that's why
That's
we
why
need.
we
Why
need
do
to
you go?
separate.
He's going. So that's discrimination.
That's-
You're letting him
barking
say
dogs.
because they've got one now. They're all right, but you can't have one. I hope the guide dog is not
You
in
can't
there.
lump cats and dogs together.
Yeah, no.
It does say in the policy,
Cats
with the
don't
exception of house cats that will never leave the internal property, cats must have access to the outside through a door.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
they-
exception
that's-
of house cats.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't, sorry, Chair, I
The
didn't
exception
think
of
that
house
particular
cats.
thing was
Right,
written
okay.
very clearly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
where we know that,
Sorry,
so where we
right.
know that animal will never leave
It's okay.
The flats.
that property.
Yes.
I had to read it several times myself, it could just be a little clearer.
Yeah.
Have you got a register already of people that have got pets?
So they've started to do an audit now. The housing officers are carrying that out at the minute. And actually, it's quite shocking where what we're dealing with, or what's been allowed to evolve over time.
And how are you going to monitor it going forward with people not just kind of getting a new pet and passing it off as the old one? Have you got visual representations or things like that?
I mean, we'll be writing to every, so the housing officers at the minute are in the process of getting in touch with every single tenant. Houses is a little bit different because for me, the main issue at the minute is in the flats, because that's where we've got fouling in communal areas. We've had to take somebody to court recently because we've got urine seeping through the ceilings. We've got no
I mean,
evidence.
that's not acceptable.
No.
That's just not
No.
acceptable.
They have to be chipped now, don't they,
Yeah,
dogs?
that's the guidelines for
So
responsible pet ownership.
that could be something, we could look into that in more detail, because I think that would be an excellent way of identifying if you've got...
a unique identifier, because a
Yeah.
brindle staffy is a
Is
brindle
a- yeah.
staffer. You could write that down, and you know the lifespan of a staffy is what, 10 years, maybe.
It could be
It
9
dies
when
at-
we go
it
out.
dies at 4 years
yeah,
and they get a
yeah,
new one and
yeah.
they've got an extra few
Yeah.
years on the end of it. Yeah, it's just how are you going to monitor it?
We'll
going
have an
forward?
internal process, so at the moment, because with the new housing management system that we're getting, we'll be able to monitor it very well on there. But in the interim, we've got spreadsheets going at the moment, so we know exactly what pets we've got in what property, what breed they are and everything else. But I take your point,
Yeah.
it'll be difficult to monitor,
Yeah.
especially because we don't know the age of that
But
pet.
I think the message that we need to get across is that the council are monitoring this, and that's the message that we need to get across to people that are in our properties, because up until now, there hasn't been any management of that. Permission has been granted, and that's that. We've had I've actually been quite astonished by the response we've had from people calling us up, giving us the information, letting us go round, because if you've got a pet at the minute, they don't want any reason for that to have to change. But we've been very clear on our expectations, and if they do breach that and get another pet, then we would be in good stance to go further and to take it to court.
Yeah.
So we
there'll be a
need that. We
blanket ban
need
on
that
animals in any council property.
in the
If they
yeah.
haven't got their own front door.
Right.
I'll be sending a letter back to everybody.
that we're writing to people at the moment. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
Just one question is, will we be able to do anything, say like on Port Lane Flats for instance, where they've got some bought, mostly council, when we sell that, if we sell a flat on, will we be able to say there's no pets in this block?
We get that now, so if through sale of properties, we can have it as a covenant.
Right,
and
okay, brilliant.
anything going forward.
So will that be put in here or?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Jenny, yes,
Can I just...
you can do what you want.
Chris mentioned, which having read it, I don't think it's actually in there, but Chris mentioned about damage to property, and you haven't actually put anything in here about recharging.
we can refer it to the recharge policy, Shirley. Yeah, I thought there was something in
think
there.
that, no, I've read something
Is
where...
there something that refers
yeah,
it to the recharge policy?
there is something in there about the cost and everything else. I'm sure I've read it, but if it ain't, just add it.
And we've got a recharge policy, so we can put, because recharge policy covers damage. So
Full stop. Yeah. No matter who or what.
Okay, everybody, did you want to add anything, take anything away or recommend anything?
No, I'm
Happy with what's
happy
the
with it.
officers
If them
Yeah.
couple of things can be added, then I'm
Well,
more than
I
happy
think
with
the
that.
officers have written down one or two items that you put forward, unless you want something, Gary.
I just think it's the companion animal aspect. I don't want to be encouraging loneliness on that aspect.
I agree. I
It doesn't
wonder
sit
if we could
comfortably with me,
separate
Well, we can all go for landlords.
shelter.
I think the issue that we've got as well is, like I was saying, across the independent living schemes, it's always been no pets. We don't have any pets in there at the minute, so we're not getting
Yep.
requests for that. Where we've got general purpose blocks of flats and we have got older people in them, I think it would be very difficult for us to give exception to one and say no to others, because what the policy does refer to is assistant pets, so where people have been referred to as if they need an assistant pets for mental health purposes and things like that. So the policy does cover that. But they would come to us through a referral from a GP or from a registered charity. So it does cover those aspects. But I would just be concerned from a management point of view how we would manage giving permissions to some people and not to
I understand that with the nuisance pets that are there already, are they not already in breach of a tenancy agreement though? For example, you
nuisance
say...
pets are dealt with, but what this policy is trying to tackle is the fact that where we've got pets in properties that shouldn't be there. So we've probably got a lot of flats where they're not causing a nuisance, but they're breaching their tenancy agreement with us. And by not doing anything, we're allowing them to breach that tenancy agreement. That's the issue we've got. So that's the bit that it's trying to tackle. If a pet's causing a nuisance, we will take that forward, and we do ask people to remove pets.
what I would say as well is that our independent living team did have a lot of comments on this policy, and I would be confident in them raising any issue that or concerns that they had about isolation, and not one of them did. And I know that if that was an issue, if they were really concerned about Mrs. Jones not having her pet dog, or they would raise it. And that's not
Can we
isn't it?
then can we note that in the policy
Can
then?
we get something in there about...
You can.
If
Well,
loneliness is a
If you
problem.
want something put in there, then we'll have it put in.
I'm on the same page as you, come on.
Where we've done, say if I use the assistance dogs or pets again as an example, when we started to do the pet audit, we had quite a lot of people coming to us and saying, well, I need my pet because I suffer from mental health, I suffer from depression and anxiety. And I took that to our legal department and also to Craig Dickens, who's our safeguarding lead. And what we looked at is where we could give permission to people where they can demonstrate that there is that need. That isn't for us to make that judgment. That actually comes from a GP or from the mental health services will refer people into these organisations, and actually they put them onto a waiting list. They come and view our properties to make sure it's safe. They do inspections, they follow up. So that aspect, I'm confident that if somebody requested that, we would look into it thoroughly.
But that's waiting for someone to be
But
lonely and mentally
what
ill,
I'm concerned
isn't it?
about is that we can't.
It's not preventing it.
We can't judge all of it. We're not professionals to say. If somebody comes to me and says I need this because I've got depression, my team cannot make that judgment. It needs to come from a professional that's working with them that says yes, this would be a benefit to this person. Otherwise, we'll be given permission to most of our tenants again, because that's what's coming in at the moment.
Yeah, and this is where the real difficulty is. I mean, it is a real difficulty, isn't it?
Chair, I've got my hand up here.
I know, you have. Good,
Yes,
yes.
everybody's jumping in. Right, in here, number 3, scope. The policy explains how the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council's housing and communities team will manage permissions for pets within its general needs and independent living accommodation. It's done, it's been covered, right? So everything that we're talking about is covered in here. You are housing officers. You're not doctors, you're housing officers trying to look after our housing stock. This helps you look after our housing stock.
Yeah.
Simple, covered. I'll move that we back this with a couple of little things like when we sell, and to cover any costs caused by animal damage is claimed.
Can I move that this council recognises that there is a problem with loneliness and isolation with older people, and that we should keep it under review, that we have, that if it's identified by whatever means, not necessarily a doctor, because that's you've waited for the person to become far too ill if you're waiting for the doctor to write a letter. You know, animals can prevent loneliness. So I'm not sure how to word it, but I just want, it's all well and good, I agree, Chris, we have to look after the properties, but we have to look after people as well, don't we?
But I'm a councillor that's got to try and look after people, and that's what this is doing. This is looking after more people. I'm not saying I'm not cared about pets, but I'd rather look after people and look after the housing stock and look after the damage and things. Pets is a different thing.
I must admit, the early comment, Chris, you made with regards to that covers our housing stock and housing, I was going to come back. That's the only thing we're here. We're here for people.
Yeah.
Whether the house falls down or stands up, we're here for people. And that was the interpretation of your first one, that it covers whatever. And we need some wording for to make sure that loneliness
Is recognised.
It's a recognised item.
Problem.
Well, we don't want to encourage loneliness to invite so,
I don't know how to word it really.
What, you got any suggestions?
I want to move
word that?
something.
Huh?
Sorry, go on, Nicola.
Can I just make a suggestion? I mean, I think we're concerned more about our older customers. Am I right? We're concerned
Yes.
about older.
Yeah.
So
Our older tenants.
our older tenants. We have got a team out on the ground looking after our older tenants. They're in the schemes every day. They're out and about and around the bungalows as well. We've got wellbeing officers. So I'd like to just give some reassurance that if any of our tenants were suffering from isolation, whether or not a pet could help, whether other support could help, they would pick that up.
Yeah.
So although I completely understand what you're saying and I take your point, that a pet might not help with that isolation or loneliness issue. It might be that we need to get a befriender in, but that service is there now, and we're doing that out on the ground every day. So I'd just like to give that reassurance that if somebody was at risk of isolation, that the team would be picking that up and we can make referrals however necessary.
Can I second Chris's motion to accept the policy with the minor changes?
Yes, of course. Of course you can.
The equality and diversity bit at the end,
Yeah.
it just doesn't quite make sense. I think you've got a word or two missing out of it, so just needs, it says Nuneaton and Bedworth councils is committed to,
Okay.
so I don't know if
We're
it's just
committed to promoting
the
equality.
S that needs
Yeah.
to come out, or
Are we happy with the comments with regard to how lonely people? If not, then our job is that this committee wants something entered into the ministry.
Yeah.
The loneliness of our
Yeah, please.
older people will be a major consideration on allowing pets for their well-being and comfort and their health.
Yeah.
Now, you're the officers, you put it together, that's what we want.
I mean, an example.
I don't get paid for that, you do.
An example would be, it's not just necessarily the older people, but there are some people who would only get out of their house to take their dog for a walk. And there are some people that are responsible pet owners that do that. There are some people that are not responsible pet owners. But if you've got somebody that's got a pet that's wrecking the house, then that surely then also is something that could be looked at under Yeah. They're looking after the property side of things. But then why should the responsible pet owner, who does only get to go out to take their dog for a walk?
I think what we come back to is the fact that it's in the tenancy agreement.
I know, but it's just
And that's
really
what we're-
difficult, isn't it? This is what we need to
Yeah, and
bottom out.
this is the problem in terms of if you're trying to manage something, how do we say to one person, yes, you're responsible, and then to another, no, we don't think you are. If we are to make the changes that we need to make, and we've recognised we've got a really big problem, for me, when I was a housing officer, I go by my tenancy agreement, and that's what I ask my officers to do. So if it's just, I don't know how you would get that fair balance, and I think that's why we needed the policy to say this is our consistent approach, because there's been no consistency historically.
Chair, to the older people who are lonely, on request of a pet, every effort will be made and considered on granting permission for them. After I'm trying to put some work together that this comes, because it does bother us, where the older people, because you see, I'm in that category, you see, lonely, and I have to got a dog. So there is a lot of people actually, because I don't sit in the house, I go out visiting in my ward and go around knocking doors, and I do go in the flats and everything, and people. And when you see some of the older people sitting, they're not just guys, ladies as well, sitting there with their pets, and that's all they've got. That's the only thing they've got in there for comforting, whatever. And what I'm not going to be a councillor that takes away something that makes them more content and more happier, and their life is, because loneliness, I can assure you, loneliness is hell. It is damned horrible. I've had a dose of it for nearly 2 years before I went on again, and it is the worst thing. I now know how older people and people are ill who have got that loneliness, and the only thing they've got is a pet that keeps them company. So it is how we get round this. You note it in there. I mean, the policy's got to go through. It's been moving. It will go through, I'm sure. But that one issue has got to be looked at or took back to the portfolio holder to do something about, because I never joined as a councillor to see somebody suffering. We've got enough on the streets as it is, sleeping rough.
I'm happy to put further clauses in there that are under a specific title of
try
isolation, and to say that the council will
give consideration.
Well, yeah, I'll word it in a way that we can put in support and help with that. If it becomes prevalent when staff are out visiting people and they're worried about that. We need. So I can put a clause in the policy that we can. So we're not giving. It's not saying that we'll give permission for those people, but we'll put additional support in place for those people.
Okay, we're more happy and more content. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded that the policy is be adopted, and but all those in favour of that?
Subject to the changes.
Sorry?
Subject to the extra policies.
Of course. I wouldn't think anything else.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, thank you very much. Right, now we're on item 7, community safe appliances.
Sorry, I just want to give you a colour. I want to give you a colour copy.
Splashed out again.
Well, that one, you got some more increases.
Splashed out again.
Have you got on that? Do you want a colour copy?
Thank you.
It's splashing out.
You don't usually have enough
What colour copy?
for me to get one.
I know, but you feel privileged.
I should frame it.
Yeah.
It's the only one that you've had in about 10 years. There you go.
Thank you. Trying to get rid of me already.
I can't say I've got the same for you on the strategic assessment though. That was 49 pages worth. Okay.
In your hands, Rachel, please.
Sorry?
It's in your hands.
Thank you. Okay, so the report you're going to have this evening is on the NABSCOT performance for quarter 3. And I've brought 2 colleagues with me who will be able to answer additional questions that you might have. So I'll introduce Inspector Williams to my right, and my lovely assistant, Linda Lesterrock, our Community Safety Officer, is also here. So what I'll do is I'll take you through the report, and we'd just like to kind of explain some of the items that we've been working on. Linda's got some additional information on the sexual violence campaign that we've been running, and then we'll take questions as we go through, if that's okay. Okay, so as I said, the report that you've got is Q3, so that brings us up to the end of December 2017. Is that right? Yes. Yeah. So you'll see here, if you look at the table on the first page, you'll see violence against the person and sexual offences had increased by 6%. So these are comparisons against the baseline. So the baseline was at the end of 2016-17. You've got violence against the person offences that had increased by 2%. Violence against the person without injury increased by 10%, and rape had increased by 19%. Other sexual offences had reduced by 4%. Residential burglary, you'll see there, has increased by 24%. Burglary other, which is the burglary business, and I don't know what the comms is. Is that
Commercial.
commercial?
Commercial,
No,
yeah.
thank you.
Business now.
Okay, has reduced by 17%. Antisocial behaviour has seen no change, so it's there as a kind of a standalone position. Deliberate small fires has reduced by 15%. And then finally, total recorded crime has increased by 10% overall. If I take you to the top right-hand corner, you'll see a graph there, which just aims to demonstrate the rolling trend for the violence against the person and sexual offences. So these are cumulative figures since April 2013. You can see that they've gradually increased. If you go beneath that, the burglary categories, you'll see there are two, it kind of tapers off around about the April 2017 time, and that's when the new categories came in. So residential burglary is the red line, that's kind of showing an increase, and then you've got your burglary, your business and it says community there, that's what's thrown me. Business and commercial is showing the decline. Beneath that, for antisocial behaviour, I've mentioned in previous meetings that for antisocial behaviour we look at three categories. We look at environmental, personal and nuisance. And in relation to that, you'll see that overall antisocial behaviour has been pretty static as per the figures on the left-hand side. There's been a slight reduction in personal, as demonstrated by the pink line. You can see at the bottom of that graph. If you turn over the next page, we've got a table there that demonstrates the domestic violence and abuse figures. So in relation to total violence against the person with injury offences, total to date in 2017-18, you'll see in the end column are 1,089. And of those, 314 are related to domestic abuse. So they've got like a domestic abuse kind of link to that. And that represents a proportion of around 29%. Now, just in relation to this, one of the things that I wanted to highlight to you is that normally we see that hovering around that 30, 35, if not a little bit more percent. So we're just watching and waiting to see what happens there. The police have implemented a new system called Athena, and with the changes on the system, we've been kind of asked to have a little bit of caution around these figures in particular. So if we move on to antisocial behaviour, and again you'll see the nuisance, the personal, environmental figures there. So total nuisance to date, we've got 2,942. Personal, we've got 624, which is a slight reduction from the previous year. And environmental, there's an increase there, which is 464. And total ASB incidents, we've got 4,033. In relation to other crime categories, we've got them broken down there. So vehicle crime, overall vehicle crime has seen an increase over this past couple of months. And you'll see there, 17-18, we've had 1,002. For theft from vehicles, 628. Theft of vehicles, 198. And then looking at separately the hate crime offences, offences and crime incidents, you'll see that there's an increase there of 200. We've had 227 during the period that we're looking at. This, although it looks as though that I guess it could look disturbing that there's been an increase. It's really good that we've got people coming forward and reporting this type of crime. And we've had a lot of positive work where we've been out to the communities and we're encouraging them to use reporting. There's like an online reporting system, etc. And again, beneath those items, you'll see, again, total recorded crime, 2,929, which is an increase of 120 on the previous year. So it's an increase of 10%. And then finally, on the end page, and you'll be familiar with this because you've seen it in reports before, an overall of recorded offences and incidents by beat. So we use this to maintain an overview of offences across the borough, and it helps ascertain where there have been increases or decreases that are linked to the impact of our interventions, or if there's a particular offender in an area. This past quarter, we've been focusing on the wards of Abbey and Wenbrook, doing some work there, Camp Hill, Weddington, but that, just to reassure you, that doesn't mean that we kind of take our eye off the ball in other areas. We maintain a watching brief and deliver, initiatives across the board. It's just meant that because we've had particular concerns around those wards, we've implemented additional resources within them. Okay. So, any questions so far?
Can I just ask, I've probably asked you this before, the domestic abuse, is that 214 separate incidents, or is that a smaller number of people and repeat offenders?
Yes,
well, those 340 will all be separate incidents, separate crimes,
Yeah.
but I can absolutely guarantee there'll be a lot of
Same.
repeat victims in there,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Because we do, now how much we try with domestic abuse, we tackle it daily,
Yeah.
because every high risk, every domestic abuse incident that officers go to, they have to do a risk assessment without the victim knowing that they're doing a risk assessment. Obviously some of them now have cottoned onto it. It's just how you ask the questions without being robotic. That then gets assessed, it gets scored, and it'll either be low, medium or high. Every day on our daily management meeting, it's usually chaired by a chief inspector, all of the high risk domestic abuse are discussed as to what we're doing with them. Every high risk domestic that's graded high risk gets a domestic abuse risk officer assigned to them, and that's for daily contact. So yeah, they're separate crimes, but without a doubt repeat victims will be in there quite a lot.
And on the hate crimes, are these ones that have been reported, or are they ones that have been reported and deemed valid? And I've got quite a personal reason for asking that, actually.
Well,
Which I probably need to speak to you about.
again, right, I'm going to use the word ethical here. When an officer, when we get a report of a hate crime, whether we gut feel believe it or not, it's ethical, and we must trust what the victim is telling us. So it will always be a crime that's a hate crime,
Okay.
and it will be investigated. And if it transpires that it didn't happen, then we will obviously go back to the crime decision maker at the end of the investigation and suggest that this be no crime because we've got evidence to suggest it didn't happen. But
So
we will not do that until the end of the investigation.
So when it's been no crime, as you say,
Yeah,
is that still included in the figure?
yeah,
Or not?
yeah, because those are the crimes. The crime figures here, you'll see it here, the crimes that we've recorded.
Right,
The actual end result doesn't really come into it.
okay,
Because for example, we can't no crime of rape,
yeah,
even if we can prove it didn't happen.
yeah. Well, I'll have to declare an interest then, because one of those is me, apparently.
Right. Okay.
Although I haven't
Suppose
heard
he's
anything of it,
Well, you're
so
gonna-
I'm expecting it to have been a no-crimed one. But from what I've heard or seen of certain people posting things on Facebook that I have been reported for a hate crime, one of those numbers will be made. However, I have not heard anything.
As a victim?
No, as the perpetrator.
Oh,
Exactly.
Maybe we have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, have a
It
conversation.
was a while ago, so I would have heard something by now.
Yeah, quite happy to have a conversation offline, but
Yeah,
not
I'm
knowing
quite happy
the
to do that because I would
intricacies.
like to have a little bit more information about it.
Okay.
Rich?
Right, on the, quite a spike really on the rate, on 19%.
Yep.
Just wondering what you're doing, what if any, you will be doing something obviously, but what sort of things you're doing about that and how you're looking at it. The reason I'm asking that obviously to see if there's any grooming or anything, if it's any different. You know, going on to the televisions and the news,
Yeah.
the sort of way that different towns have been affected by different groups moving in. I'd like to think that that's not happening here, and that's why we're seeing the spike.
Alluding to CSE, is that what you're talking about? Child sexual?
Yeah, but all sorts of things. Is it down to a certain group of people or whatever, or is it just rapes all?
Well, I can't sit here, Councillor, and say there isn't a child sexual exploitation issue in Nuneaton, because there slightly is, which is something that we're currently investigating under an operation that I'm running. But to answer your question holistically, these rape allegations come from all walks of life, if you like, even some within personal relationships. So you can have a partner suggesting that, or make an allegation against their partner that they've raped them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, it can be within the household, not just, you know, nighttime economy or people are grooming young females, which generally it is. But obviously you've just done your campaigns.
If I could just come in there, obviously the police investigate any sexual violence cases, etc. But the other side of it is trying to get messages out to the public of where they can go for help, of what's been done, etc., and what's out there. So that's why we ran the sexual violence campaign. I don't know if, well, hopefully you're aware of it. The aim of this was to get the message out that no means no. It's not no now, but it might be no a bit later on. So that was one of the main aims. Increase reporting, give advice and information on how to report, and support agencies that are out there. That quite a lot of people, personally I know, said that they didn't know that those sort of things, places were there, and change the culture of just because of how someone dresses, that isn't an indication of that you're
It's not an
up for
invitation,
it.
is it?
Exactly. So that's why we went with the, hopefully you've seen these around. There's a bundle there. That was the main flagship. They've been on all the JCDecaux boards across the borough for a month. So that took in the week of the campaign, which was the 12th to the 18th of February, which also included Valentine's Day, which is why we ran it that week. So that was the main campaign. That's another poster that was around. That was in many of our sports centres. That's more for the younger people. That's in a Facebook type, you know, says silence is not a yes. Then this is the dress culture. That's saying what you wear isn't saying that you're up for sex. This was for the Valentine's Day, about safe online dating that we ran. And also in our nighttime establishments in the town centre, we're running a campaign called Ask for Angela. And all the band members are on board with this. They were very keen to take part. So oh, sorry, Bars Against Nighttime Disorder that the nighttime establishments belong to. So this poster is in the toilets, male and female, of those establishments. And if someone is feeling uncomfortable about the person that they're with or the situation, they don't actually have to ask for Angela, but they know they can go to a member of staff and they will keep an eye on them or just move them to place of safety or get them a taxi. And there's also information in the staff room for members of staff to keep reminding them of what their responsibility is through this campaign. And it's been very well received. And I do have some results of the campaign. The total number, it was an online campaign apart from the posters. So we've got from the Monday the 12th of February to the Sunday the 18th. And on the Monday we focused on police reporting, how to report things. And then on the Tuesday it was clothing, which was the Little Black Dress campaign. Wednesday was Valentine's Day, so it was online dating and how to keep yourself safe in that situation. The next day was the SARC, Sexual Abuse Referral Centre, which a lot of people didn't know existed, that you can go yourself. You don't have to be referred. The next day was child sexual exploitation, linking with Bernardo's and how people can recognise that and get help. Then the Saturday was promotion of services across the board, and the Sunday recapped the whole lot. So in total on Facebook and Twitter there was 722 shares, likes, retweets, etc. So that's just 722 people
Shares.
in the borough of about that. And I can tell you that on the most we got for Facebook likes was for the police on day 1, 105 on how to report. The second most popular was the child sexual exploitation Facebook likes. We had 110. Third was the clothing, 84 on that one. Fourth was the Sexual Abuse Reporting Centre. And the fifth one was the Valentine's Day Stay Safe Online. With regards to the Ask Angela, one of the establishments actually had someone come up to the staff and actually ask for that, so we know of one instance. But the establishments have asked for more posters, and we're going to look at rolling it out across the borough. We'll take that forward. And the Recovery Partnership, they were very prevalent in their putting these messages out. And apparently they've stated that there have been a number of clients and staff explaining the campaign's purpose to people using their service. And also the youth contact team have been out and also talking to young people. So while I haven't got numbers, they spoke to a lot of young people in their work during that week on the campaign. So I'm sorry to go on a bit, but that's basically what we did during that week.
So our comms have been quite active with that then?
Absolutely. This was all designed by our comms and the media package.
We've got these sort of things into our community centres and that?
I sent them out through Gurmit Baines to put the posters up.
I'll get a couple of these. I have to go into my community notice boards.
Please do.
There's also, excuse me, there's also been a big child exploitation event at Belfry Hotel in February that sort of followed this, with police and partners, that was really well attended.
Yeah.
We've also done a lot of work with the hotels and the taxis, because obviously they can pick up these kinds of issues and report it into us. And of course we do get...
It's mandatory.
Yes,
that
mandatory.
they have mandatory training.
Have we got any sort of contact within Stagecoach to put something like this on?
We've got contacts,
yeah. We can find some.
People use buses, don't they? Yeah. Well, otherwise Stagecoach would be in trouble, wouldn't they?
So just like rape, you know, all of these sexual offences, the hate crime, the rape, you know, these are the areas where police and partners are really trying to get out the message to the communities. We want you to report. So we expect those crime numbers to rise.
Yeah.
Because of that.
And the other question I had, it was on the antisocial behaviour. You've probably told me this 100 times. But on the antisocial behaviour, I've got nuisance, personal, environmental. The environmental is the motorbikes, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Or is it not?
Or damage to...
Is it changed again?
No, it is, but it's also damage to, let's say, the parts equipment. Any play equipment that's damaged, that's environmental ASB.
Our problem is also, because of our recording, they will put it under nuisance.
Because motorbikes is driving me crazy.
Yeah.
We are tackling it.
Yeah.
We are tackling it. We just haven't got enough riders.
Yeah, I know.
We will always struggle. We haven't got. We've had 2 officers just retire, so that's lost us about 20% of our off-road bike capability, unfortunately. But
do you do anything with drones?
Yeah, but only when the operation with the bikes is running.
Right.
Because otherwise it's pointless putting the drone up.
Yeah.
And unfortunately there's only one drone and it's used all over the place. So, and the officers who use the drone have to be trained. And we've only got a
crashes into somebody.
Yeah, coming back to the first part of the debate, of course, when you look at the reports and that, and you know the wards, and you know the areas, it's very difficult to understand and accept where you think it can't happen there. You know, it doesn't happen there. You know, I mean, it's like Slough, I'm where represent Slough, and I look down there, they're 45 and Slough, and I think, Slough, 90% of them are old people in bungalows. I know I've got areas, I mean there is areas around Chelsea and Pleasant Flats and all around there. We can't say it's them because they're in flats, good God no. But then you look and you think, it just doesn't ring a bell that that part of the borough is with these things until you see these reports and you think, wow, they're here. Yeah, you can't relate to it. I struggle to relate to it some of it very much. Motorbikes, I'll give you congratulations, you ain't done a bad job in Bedworth round there. And all round the Nuneaton and all round there.
Try.
Yeah, you ain't done a bad job, I must admit. You always get the odd one, keep trying to
It'll never go away, unfortunately.
Yeah, no,
We'll keep tackling it.
try and test you out, see how clever you are on your motorbike, but generally
The difficulty we've got as well is it's a non-pursuit policy. So,
I mean, I've seen, you've made houses and sheds where they're just full of these racing bikes and that, and on it, I mean, at the bottom of my garden, sort of across there, was rather truly renowned. And the police have moved up in the areas, and still, some areas still got problems.
well, PCC's office are supporting as well, so.
Can I ask another question on the antisocial behaviour? The personal one,
Yeah.
is that harassment?
Yeah.
Well, I need to declare an interest on that as well then.
Okay.
It all ties in. I'll give it sounds worse than it is, but basically I am being harassed and I've had to make several complaints about a few individuals, and as a response to that I was reported for hate speech. So that's where it kind of comes into it. So yeah, I'm going to have to declare an interest that
You ain't been hitting somebody, you're not somebody.
No, unfortunately I haven't.
Well,
So if harassment is counted in one of them, I'm going to have to declare an interest because I've had to report several instances of harassment.
Well, fair enough, yeah. John?
Yes, I don't like to keep banging on about this, but I shall bang on about it again. Uber. You've turned around and said that the taxis have mandatory training. If you're a Uber driver and your licence is not within this borough, right, they're not hackney cabs, right, which is licensed within a specific area, right? How do we deal with Uber coming in and out the borough?
I think that would be one for the licensing department to deal with, really, with regards to vetting the taxi drivers.
Councillor, can we take an action
Yeah.
to discuss that with the licensing department?
Yes,
Because I haven't got an answer for you.
We've got a multi-agency licensing meeting next Thursday, so I can raise it now if you're happy with that.
Well, everywhere I go, I try. There's myself and Councillor Lloyd once upon a time were taxi drivers, and I'm not complaining about people actually doing the job. I'm complaining about where they get the licence, and if they get a licence not within this authority, whatever authority gives them that licence, do they do the check-up that we are mandatory saying to our people who come for the licence?
Yeah, I can check that. I know in Warwickshire, I think most local authorities have made it mandatory for CSE training to be part and parcel of what they do. I know, for instance,
We do have it, but
Warwick do.
yes, we do.
But I don't know about. I mean, if you're thinking about like somebody coming in from across the border, I don't know, but I'll ask that question and find that out.
I'm talking about perhaps Birmingham.
Okay.
And it gets, there's some places it's easier to get the independent drivers, the Uber drivers licence, rather than other authorities. And if people are knowing that, they can go and get licences elsewhere, which means you can operate here. It's just I know a couple of Uber drivers and they're great people, but I'm just saying, if we're on about about grooming and various other things we were talking about before. Have they got people coming in and out all the time? I would like to make sure that people are safe to go back home at night. Because Tony will tell you and I'll tell you, the best thing that you could ever do is to get as many taxis into the town centre at night time to get people away from the town centre, you know. And we were given certain liberties to do that sort of thing to stop any possible problems. But there is I'm just a wee bit concerned about the Uber thing, where they get the licences from, and do them with the same standards as we have.
Yeah, we do only allow the Nuneaton and Bedworth registered taxis to use the night time.
Yeah, to use a taxi rank in the night time.
Yeah,
you
that's... but that's...
Yeah, you won't get Uber taxis on the taxi rank.
Yeah, but that's Hackney carriage. There's a difference.
I totally
there is
agree.
a difference.
I'm just saying that
because
they're not allowed on that
Ubers
night
can't pick up on the street, are not supposed to pick up on the street. If somebody phones up and says, I'd like a taxi to go to A to B, that's okay. But they can't somebody can't flag them down or go to the taxi rank. It's just a thing that just niggles me a wee bit. I just want to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing. If there's an authority that's selling, for want of a better word, more independent licences than the market decide, you know. I'm just
I see your point, and we will, yeah, it's valid.
Because what we did have a problem with, and we clamped down in this authority because you have to do a certain test and do it on roads and all sorts now. The amount of people that come into Coventry used to flock over it to get a licence because I tried to go to Coventry when I moved it, and was horrendous to try and get a licence. And in Coventry, and the cost was terrible. But here, we were very easy. We were quite easy to get one, and it cost very little, and you could drive in Coventry backwards and forward. But then I know we have changed a lot, and different tests and different things they have to do now, and they have altered it all because it was a major concern, but we've stopped it now to a great degree. Anyway, any more members like to, any comments? No? Any further? Rachel, any further comments?
No, I mean, obviously we're here to kind of talk about some of the work that we've done. I don't know if you want to hear about some of the projects and initiatives that we've been working on.
Yeah, so it's in your hands. It's
okay. I'll whiz through them, and then if you want to kind of explore them after I've done that, we can take you through them. So just in terms of partnership and partnership projects that we've been working on, I've split them through the kind of key areas, like the key priorities. Violence, obviously, please maintain their EPI, and running alongside that within the town centre, we've got our taxi marshals, which we just alluded to. They continue to run. The other thing that we've funded as well has been some metal detectors within the nighttime clubs, what are they? Nighttime economy. So metal detectors within there to kind of help with knife crime, etc. You've heard about the sexual violence campaign that Linda's been leading on. We've had some substance misuse sessions within the schools, and that's around alcohol, substance misuse, etc. And then the Ask Angela campaign as well that Linda's also alluded to. So that's kind of sexual violence in a nutshell. For antisocial behaviour, you should be aware that we've got the 17 CCTV dome hill cameras, and you'll get updates on the locations of those, so we're continuing to deploy those across the borough. We've got new tools and powers. I say they're new, they've been around for about 3 years now, and we're continuing to use those. So these are closure notices, closure orders, injunctions, community triggers, etc. So Julie Delich, who works in our team with Linda and I, she's the lead for those and works very closely with the police on implementing those. We've also got the youth contact team, so they're the teams where if you were to say you've got an issue over the park at 10 o'clock, well maybe not that late, but 9 o'clock of an evening, the youth contact team would go along and do some engagement work there. So we fund those. There's the antisocial behaviour team as well with the fire service, so they're on the bikes, push bikes, and do kind of engagement via that. We have monthly case management meetings for antisocial behaviour, so that looks at the locations, it looks at perpetrators, it looks at victims, and what we're trying to do is identify each element of how we can either intervene with perpetrators or support the victims. So again, we've got a really good partnership arrangement there. If I move on to, the other thing around antisocial behaviour is Linda's been leading a piece of work in Cleaver Gardens in Weddington. It's been a hotspot area for antisocial behaviour as well. If we move on to acquisitive crime, again, some of the things we've been doing as a partnership is issuing burglary packs to victims, including property marking, etc. There's been a number of police operations, and I won't kind of steal your thunder if you're going to mention any of those. And in addition to that, we've been working with the probation service around a buddy scheme, which is a buddy tagging scheme for offender management. On top of that, in relation to hate crime, we've been involved in the Hate Incident Partnership, and we continue to support the work that's happening there, the county-wide hate crime group. A couple of local projects we've established with Equip. Are you familiar with Equip? So they've taken over from, you know, REP. Do you remember REP?
Oh, yes.
Or it's your own equality body. Equip have now become what REP used to be. Right. So they are broader than just race equality. They are kind of all equalities. So they're an equality partnership now. So Abu in our team has been doing work around that. And he's also been working on a number of prevent projects, so preventing violent extremism. He's been doing some work around that too.
Could I just add, I'd almost forgotten about it because it was so long ago. In November it was Alcohol Awareness Week, and there was various multi-agency things that went on. And one of those, we had a stall in Rope Walk, and engaging with the public, etc. And the Recovery Partnership actually told me that they've had a few people that went straight down to their service that day from receiving the information that we'd given them and talking to them. So as far as I'm concerned, if 2 people went into treatment, it was a morning's work well done.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're the interventions that as a partnership we've been involved in. I don't know if you've got any questions on those.
John?
Just the one, and you haven't mentioned it, there's the area committees that are set up. Is there any involvement in that? Because it's a while since I've been to the area committee, or whatever they call themselves now. And because the police used to be in attendance, and once upon a time you used to be able to give two things that come from the meeting. That the
community forums.
Forums,
yeah,
right, sorry.
Yeah.
Community forums. Is there any feedback on the community forums and how they're working?
No, I mean they're in limbo at the moment.
They are in limbo. I mean, North Warwickshire, they stop them. In Bedworth, they stop them, then they start them. They're a bit in limbo. In a lot of respects, they're a little bit toothless, if I'm honest, only because they've been going that many years now, and actually the audiences are reducing. So you can actually end up, in some of them, you've got more partners there, i.e. councillors and police, than you've got in the audience. So we're trying to think of different ways. I mean, down south, for example, they do online voting now into the police website, which is what we're planning on doing in North Warwickshire, and it might be something we can adopt in Nuneaton and Bedworth. But they are in decline.
Yes, I understand that, and I understand the reason why.
But we still go to them.
Yeah, because people come back with the same complaints time after time after time, and they can't see anything that's actually happening. So if that model's not working, let's try and get another model in, because there's nothing wrong with trying to get community involvement, but you've got to get community involvement when the community thinks we, as partners, are actually doing something. And what gets at the present moment, as I said, it's been a while since I've been to one of the forums, is that there's a negativity about them now, and it's the same thing every, the Bedworth junction, he said the lights in Bedworth comes up time and time and time again, he said nothing gets done. But I'm just saying, if there's some other way we should be looking at it, we should be looking at something else. If somebody's got another model, why not look at that model and see if we can implement that somewhere?
Okay, we did I don't know if you remember, about 6 to 8 months ago I contacted elected members and asked your views on community forums, and some of you responded and some of you didn't. The responses that we had predominantly said from elected members that you didn't feel that they were often a useful, use of your time, etc. Running alongside that, Warwickshire County Council, who leads the community forums, are also considering the future of them because they obviously deliver them across the whole of the county. We have written to the County Council. Alan Franks wrote to David Carter to ask for an update and a progress report on forums and what are the next steps. We're awaiting an update from them to just understand what their recommendations are going to be, because without them on board, the forums as we know it won't continue to run, and we need to be able to understand what resources they've got, what resources the police have got, and what resources we've got to be able to kind of come up with a solution to what could be a potential forum. But at this moment in time, they're delivered so piecemeal. You've got some operating in one area and none in another.
Well, part of a county, part of the problem, well, not part of the whole. If you talk about Poplar Ward and East or West, whatever it is, we got forum, right? That is a Pacific thing, and then people said, well, that's not working, and Bedworth Heath, etc., it's not working there. We should put the two of them together, which were a disaster. Because the people in Bedworth Heath have got particular problems separate from the people in Poplar. When you've got close community groups and they understand the particular problems they have in their particular areas, if you make it bigger, you don't make the problem go away. It's just whoever's got the loudest voice at any given time that people listen to.
But it also depends on what it is you want, what it is that area want to A, hear, or B, communicate, or C, kind of activate. And like you say, you've got different areas want different things. We used to have a situation where you had Gallycombe and you had Camp Hill as a community forum. I don't think it worked for either of those areas, to be fair. They're two distinctly very different areas. I think the east of Nuneaton worked quite well. You got Wellington, St Nick's, Whitestone. You got a strong neighbourhood watch, got strong links there. That was very different. So actually, one size fits all doesn't work. Splitting up Nuneaton and Bedworth into 7 areas, okay, it looks good on paper, but actually in reality, it's not that easy to kind of meet the needs of everybody. So it's about, there's an opportunity to review and refresh, but I think at the moment, until we're clear on what county we need to understand what resources we've got, and at the moment we've relied on county to lead them. And until we're clear on what they might propose in the future, we're kind of in limbo a little bit. We either make a decision ourselves to say, well, you know what, this is what we want, or we just kind of wait and see. But we're in the same position. We haven't got the resources to service. Like you're saying, if you put the 2 Bedworth areas together, that would solve resources because an officer could go to one, but actually that doesn't work. So then how do you meet the needs of those different areas? It's not an easy solution.
The problem is as well, is the fact is if we've got an issue in your ward and we've got a forum, you get 2 parties with their councillors coming to that forum to press their issue in front of the public that we're representing, and we ain't going to let them do that. There's a lot of that goes on, and we're just as guilty of using the forum or the system of fighting, 2 parties fighting over an issue. I mean, we got Woodland Joe going into race leads and all again is half them turning up, and we're half turning up, and that's the issue for the all night. And the real issues of the other, and that is political. And it basically becomes a major issue of political because the borough plan and the woodlands, and it's a shame really, and that does go across the board. So it really does need somehow or other shuffling around to try and come up with an answer how to get we do need the community involved. We've got to get them involved somehow.
Is there a possibility, or we can make a recommendation or whatever, I don't know, to the county council to try and get some sort of round robin or whatever you want to call it, people sitting around the table to say, what's working, what isn't working, and perhaps somebody else has got a different idea to make these things. Because I'm all in favour of community involvement, I really am. But being to the forums, and it's the same people time after time after time after time, and it's the same questions and nothing getting done time after time. That's a waste of our time, it's a waste of the community's time, and with resources as thin as they are on the ground, that's a waste of resources that perhaps, because it's no good having the police turning up and every meeting getting the same stickers that they're getting from time after time.
Well, they're in the same
Actually
position as
nothing.
everybody else,
Exactly,
you know, limited resources.
I'm saying,
Chris, you want to have a go?
Well, just very quickly on community forums, I think it becomes a victim of your own success. If somebody comes along with a problem, you solve it, you don't see them again. So that happens, so ours are over very quickly. I think the record's half an hour now, so I'm quite proud of that. I had to go straight to work anyway. So, but yeah, that I do think, because like, if you've got a room full of people, you've got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the guy with the banging drain.
Oh, yeah.
Never seen him again because he had it fixed.
I mean,
Sorry.
it could be that perhaps giving information as to where to report different things, because you don't necessarily need a group community meeting. If you've got a problem with the traffic lights, if you've got a problem with the drains, if you've got a problem, there's different areas, like you go to county council for your traffic lights. There's reporting mechanisms in place, but it's perhaps making people aware of this. Fix my street, you go online, you've got a pothole, fix my street. So that you don't necessarily need to be in a community forum to get problems solved. No. It's knowing where to report them.
Well, an example of that was the other week, I think it was last week, I was stuck at the traffic lights on the going to the Woods M6, and the traffic light was changing every like second. So I reported it when I got back in, because it took me about 3/4 of an hour to get around that island. Because the traffic lights were all out of sync. The traffic build-up was right up towards Bedworth and going back, but nobody knew where to report it. So I got the number off the signal box as I went past. But yeah, coming back to this. On the deliberate small fires, you've got signage across the north of the county, Warwickshire Fire Rescue Service are introducing signage and potential cameras. Have we ever had to use them in Nuneaton or Bedworth? Cameras. Now I can remember a time when I've seen one up in one of our car
They used to have
parks.
climbing cameras.
We have used their climbing cameras before.
Are we on the report yet?
No, that was one.
Well, Rachel's just gone through the partnership working, which is there.
Are you on the pink paper?
Yeah.
We're not at that one.
We ain't on that one.
Still in the
It's still relevant.
In answer to your question, the fire
Half an hour
service,
away.
It's on pink and this
We
is
will
on
in a
camera.
minute.
in answer to
Still
your
on the
question,
partnership,
the fire
yeah.
service has obtained some new cameras, but I don't know if they've been deployed yet. Rebecca,
Yeah, not to my knowledge they haven't.
Okay.
can certainly find out.
One more, then we'll get on to the partnership so they can come again.
Okay. I'm just conscious that Dave's got an update for you in terms of kind of current policing interventions. I don't know if it's an opportunity to. Can we update you on that as well,
Yeah,
please?
please, yeah.
Thank you.
Right, okay.
I'm just going to
Some of it's based on the figures that Rachel's already gone through. But some of it's obviously the current, so really what's been happening in January, February, March already this year. So force-wise, we've got 2 operations currently on the go.